Yep.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Laura Ellis,
I'm James Phelps.
and we are going to have the case study analysis for Michelle Rhee. Um, okay, James, let's see. The first question was, what evidence did you gather of how Rhee influenced others?
Well, and watching how she went about having her conversations with different stakeholders, I noticed she had a very empowering voice, and she did have a vision for what she thought it should look like. And she really didn't listen as much as I thought she would to her stakeholders. And this gave me a little bit of a kind of a red flag as to her style of um, administration. It's not to say it's a right or wrong style. I just think that I would want to take in more information before just dictating, because I did hear at one point this isn't a democracy, and
Yeah,
that really shook me. And so that's kind of how that's where I guess I would uh, leave that a little bit more open to interpretation for the future. But that was really rough to hear. So, what did you think about that?
that's funny because in my notes, I had actually wrote down that she declared school district is not a democracy as
Hmm.
well. And she went in much like that funny video that we watched from the Stand By Me movie.
Hmm.
She went in like bull in a china closet, like we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. She declared what they were going to do. And I think that her influence was just because it was so urgent. Hurry, like just do what I say and don't ask questions.
Right.
It was very, very political. The teachers comment, the principals in the frontline video had commented, they were very intimidated by her. She wasn't, as you said, including the stakeholders, not the parents, not the parents were not a fan of her in general, or at least the people that frontline portrayed or filmed. Um, she just went out there. She was really savvy. Anytime there was a camera, she's on the camera pleading her case. And she was super, she was super confident and everything. And I think what struck me is the point in the frontline video where she is out having dinner with the Washington D.C. city council members,
Hmm.
fancy restaurant, trying to get him to approve her plan and to vote yes for it, which she was confident that he would.
And he didn't.
And he didn't. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But he used it to his advantage. It wasn't that he was against the program. That was a political move for him because he wanted to and I can't remember who that guy was. I can't remember the name of that person. And it really doesn't matter. Um Maybe Thomas or something like that. But that way he kind of wanted it to go through, but then he gained politically because he could say later that he voted no for that.
Yeah, exactly.
And I
Hmm.
think that is the danger when you have a strong personality like this coming in, and it just seems like a lot of power and control. And I mean her influence, she was really, I guess, bossy.
Right. Right. I get
Um,
that too.
So I don't know. Okay, how did she leverage the different sources of power and what were some of the outcomes of her decisions? Well, we kind of touched on one of those things. Um, she was playing these political cards and ended up one of those was she was just a pawn as well in the political
Hmm.
system, as far as I'm concerned. But what do you think about that?
Well, so one of the things I guess I caught myself admiring her in is that, in education, it's not just I'm going to go teach or I'm going to go be an admin. And you can't just sometimes make these decisions. Like when she had to fire some of the school district people. And she ran into that problem where these are more like elected people and they have a little protection. The part that I liked that she did do was not just cop out. I think that there were other ways to possibly go about it, other than going to a councilman and, looking for a vote. I thought that was real strategic of her to try to get the district, because I think that there are people in districts that are just sitting in a chair filling a seat and they're collecting money, not doing things
Yeah.
that are right by kids. And, it's funny because like one of the lines I heard her say was, um, it's like, what do you teach? And the answer was students or children. And I'm struck by that a little bit because a lot of teachers would say English or math or something like that. And then to kind of bring it full circle, there are these teachers that just didn't have probably the right mentoring.
Yeah.
And that's where I wish that she would have like went in with a mentoring program instead of a I'm going to fire you program. And
Yes.
just big, you know what I mean? And so just because like these district people were the way they were and the teachers were the way they were, and she thought that this was just a problem and we need a clean house. I understand. I've been in those situations, but that's what's led me to how I am now, knowing that there are ways to, these are human beings with families and this is their craft. And yeah, sure, I don't want people in it that aren't in it for, the love of teaching or the love of students. At the same time, though, those people are there and they just maybe don't know that times have changed and we need to have a shift towards what the data says.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of that's what really needed to be, I think, painted out there instead of like I just don't like how she went about it, but at the same time I'm kind of happy that I've learned that there are ways. Like she didn't just settle. She like went in and did it. And I like people who will go in and get work done. I just don't necessarily agree with the way she did it, if
Yeah,
that
and
makes.
I think that people, it appeals to people. Like you said, you like people who do something, they take action. Um, but this was dangerous and it was damaging. And it ended
Mhm.
up, if she ends up like basically the mayor gets voted out, she loses her job. Um, People don't like her. There were teachers that had been teaching for 20, 30 years and they got fired. I mean, it was a mess. It was a mess. And
Well,
and it did not help the students at all. And in fact, I was looking at it was the one of the last few minutes of in the frontline video, and a woman had taken over Noyes Elementary, which was basically held up as the Miracle Elementary School. And
oh, that's right. Hmm.
yeah, and they suspected the cheating, which when people are put in when they're cornered, they're going to do
She did the
unethical things,
well, and she did the whistleblowing thing, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
Yeah.
she basically had found three teachers basically that
Right.
were erasing tests,
Right.
and she reported that, and there was a whole investigation and they could never come up with anything. But the fact is that the next year they took the test with tighter
Hmm.
security and they actually did 30% worse than
Exactly.
previous. And that didn't happen. You wouldn't lose that kind of those gains that quickly. They never had the gains to begin with. So
Exactly.
it was all smoke and mirrors, and that's why these people are dangerous. If someone comes in
Hmm.
and they say they can fix it immediately, it is going to be based on fear, their buddies, all of that. And we see this in all sorts of you see this in corporate America sometimes,
Hmm.
politics, look around, and in school districts. And I can tell you my school district is one of those right now. I'm
Mm.
afraid. There's no miracle worker. You have to, like, I'm thinking about what we learned about with Aguilar. Like, you have to go slow to move fast. And you have to
Exactly.
start with the right people. And so even though it's appealing because this woman is ballsy and walking in. No, she's on a power trip.
Right.
And I can tell you when you're being chauffeured around and you are like just giving orders to people and you're not really, she worked for 3 years in second and third grade in Baltimore. I worked in Baltimore 3 years. That's all the teaching experience she had. And it's in second and third grade. Only third grade is tested. Like, I'm
What?
sorry, she had
That's
she had the degrees and she probably had the business sense, but she did not, as far as I'm concerned, was not qualified. But yeah.
right.
So those different sources of power, I don't know. She closed the school, she fired people, she really caused mayhem. Oh, and they
Hmm.
were also angry because of their teacher evaluations. 50% of that evaluation was based on the test scores, right?
Right. That's
So, and they were rewarding people. That's another thing, which makes me
monetarily.
concerned about TIA
Hmm.
because cheating is going to improve if there's financial incentive for it. I said
Right.
improve. I meant increase.
Well, yeah.
Test scores will improve by cheating. That's a risk that people take whenever they do this because the teachers want the money. And I yeah, I think it's
Well,
dangerous. I think it's really dangerous.
I agree. I'll tell you just real, I mean, I know I want to get back on the questions, but I can tell you that on the TIA side, I came from a special education background,
Hmm.
and at my particular school, I couldn't believe this happened. We have, ELLs that they just really have trouble without their accommodations. And in my testing room, one particular year, about 3 years ago, I had some ELLs taking the test, and I had their stems on the wall and that sort of thing. And TIA was, evaluating because they come in with a clipboard and they watch you. And I had to lean in on one of the students' computers, and I was showing the navigation to where they could get a prompt.
Hmm.
And because of that, I got dismissed. They said that I was cheating,
Oh my
and
gosh.
I said, well, they didn't turn on accommodations, and this is before we were able to turn accommodations on in our district. And I said they're just not on. So I was like, I said we can take this both ways. I can let the money go because I really don't care about it. Because what I really care about is being fair to the student. And I was like, and you know, this could get we could go down an ugly road because you're taking away an accommodation that the student, he can't, you know, use it without his accommodations. And yet you're over here saying something that you don't have information on, and you're justifying. And so it's kind of like they didn't have the full story. Had they been in there maybe like 2 minutes before and saw the hand raise, the frustration, the crying on the person's face, like they can't do it because they're trying real hard, then
Yeah.
this might have been a different outlook. But they didn't see any of that. All they saw
I
was what they saw.
I think what I would, because I am all about teachers protecting themselves, and I think that as a future administrator or whatever it is that I end up doing, and I know you're kind of in that position right now, right?
Hmm.
You have someone we like our assistant principal is responsible for all of those types of things. If there's anything that's an issue, I call her and she deals with it. But I'm not put in a position during a test situation. Like I think my very first school had such strict rules about it, like you are walking, you don't linger at a student's desk, you don't look at their screen, you read everything from the book. And I do those things because I was trained that way. Like there cannot be any question about what you're doing. And And I think that if you don't have a campus who has people that are like, this is your support person, you have the student pause the test and they just wait. And then you let that
Right.
administrator handle it. Because then you were put in a terrible position, right?
Right.
So I mean the rules just need to be very clear and oh my God, our free meeting is ending in 10 minutes. So
Oh,
let's hurry up and go on.
okay.
Okay. What school improvement practices did she engage in? I wouldn't say that she tried to improve by dismantling. As we discussed, she came in and fired people, and she was like wanted to change the evaluation system. What else?
I
Um,
think that she was making an attempt to apply systems that may not have been implemented correctly in the past. And this is the part of the disruption that she caused was not having the systems, putting them in, telling principals, you're either doing it this way or you're fired. And
yeah,
then when you don't perform, you're fired.
yeah,
And so those are, it was a little reckless, but I know that, I think that that's what she was trying to do. And then really pushing it to be data centered instead of being a teacher centered, to where, kids need not just able to know how to do something, but they need to know how to like behave and they need to know how to be decent human beings. And I felt like she didn't care as much about that as she did about getting the paper right, you know? And
absolutely. That's
so,
dangerous. That's dangerous. I remember one of the things she said that poverty shouldn't matter. If
right,
teachers are saying, I need to know if my kids had breakfast or what's going on, they may have had the police come to their house or they may have had this or that. And there was no concern for the whole child. There was no concern for what the teachers were going through as they were, um, you know,
going through the process.
right, right. And yeah, she didn't involve them. There was no family or community ownership. She skipped a bunch of steps. And the biggest thing, there was no psychological safety at all. Everybody was
Right.
on edge. And so that's the danger. This causes people just to teach to the test or cheat or whatever, and the students lose. The students lose in all of that. Yeah, it seems weird to me. Okay, so yeah, there's no, I mean, everything that we learned about with Aguilar, about getting getting teachers together to talk about what their concerns are. I don't know. I guess I could specifically, we could go back,
Well,
spend time on some of the things like yeah,
in
adults have to
Aguilar,
feel safe. Adults have to feel safe to learn so that they can learn more about learning to teach. Um, they had to, it was too broad. Fix it, raise the test scores. Like
right, with
where,
no
yeah,
plan.
it was crazy. Okay, I'm going to another question. Oh, what school improvement okay, we got that. What evidence of turnaround leadership competencies did Michelle Rhee display? I don't know, turnaround just just because she was setting goals and monitoring. I don't really.
Yeah, and I think that what competencies, I could actually list more competencies she wasn't doing
Yeah, exactly.
than what she was doing. The accountability was probably the biggest one I think she was trying to enforce.
Right.
And
But there's
not that
no teamwork, no
right.
collaboration. Right.
It, so I would just kind of say there were, she really individualized a lot of this, I think. And instead of using a team that she would have appointed, she had to appoint a team, but this is all her.
Yeah, it was pretty much her just talking all the time. Okay, next. what frames did Michelle Rhee rely on to address the problems in DC schools? Um,
Like as far as frames, is this like what
I guess I think that we had talked about like I remember that vaguely.
is this kind
There's
of
a
where she's
political, there's like structural
yeah.
frame, political frame, and I think it was mostly political. She made it all political.
Well, she wanted to get rid of parts of the school board, I think, and get rid of parts of the district administrators. And, she was having to go the political route uh, to get her voice heard so that she could get rid of people that she felt were just filling chairs.
Mhm.
And so that's her kind of, instead of, working to solve a problem with the people that were in place, she was actually, um, you know, saying they had no place and she would solve the problem.
Pretty
And
much.
so,
Yeah,
yeah,
there's no concern about the history, the culture of the schools, and that's another problem. She had a starkly people were concerned that she did not she wasn't sensitive to the culture
what
difference.
their voice was. Yeah,
Yeah.
not at
Yeah.
all. Not at all.
Okay, let's keep going because I think we have 3 minutes and 50 seconds.
Okay.
Um, uh, consider personality, emotional intelligence, power dynamics, and psychological safety.
There was no psychological safety.
Yeah,
There was her, and you either learned to do it or you jumped off the ship or
yeah,
she was going to let you go.
exactly. And it says, how did she build and lead teams? I don't see her. You addressed that. There really were no teams. Um, uh, let's see, problem solving and well, that's not it.
Well, because her idea was, I'm going to put principles in place that are going to do the way I want you to do it. And if you're not going to do it this way, or you're not going to like make the shift, then we don't have a place for you here. And so it was apparent, during the frontline video that she was calling these principles out. And yeah, they might have had some problems, but it could have been handled in a less fear, driven modality. I think that she could have had better conversations and put the ball back in her court. It goes against what Aguilar would be saying, it's these are conversations. I want you to realize what you're doing wrong so you can fix it instead of me telling you you're just messing up.
Yes.
And a lack of a better way to say that. So
Yeah, she
that's
didn't
kind
go
of
in and evaluate people and say, here's this one thing we're going to work on. Like everything we've learned about how you take those small actionable items and you let people improve one
right.
thing at a time and you let them grow and it's you're making these gradual changes because this is something you cannot I mean, it was just too much. And
Right.
and that is dangerous. These problems take years and years and years to
To
get to
solve.
this point, right? And the ninth grader who can't read also couldn't read in third grade. What happened
Right.
in between, you know?
Yeah.
And I just feel like this is, yeah, she was just a lot of um I'm sorry, I'm reading the questions and I'm realizing we have a minute.
That's
So
okay.
I guess
What's the last
problem
question on it?
solving. Let's do the last question. Problem solving. Coming finally to problem solving and continuous learning. How did Rhee approach both of these practices? Did you feel she
And
was successful? Did the DC schools positively improve?
I can't say for certain now they have the investigations that are revolving around what her systems were. And so I think that her problems created more problems. Her problem solving created more problems. In that, when you
It
have
just
these two,
covered it up. It made it look okay for a while.
yeah, and
But it didn't solve any
you're going
problems.
to have big problems in the future not being able to hold on to your teachers and holding on to your administration because you need seasoned people just as much as you need new people coming in. And like
They needed
you can't,
Bambrick Santoyo. They needed Bambrick
yeah,
Santoyo.
exactly. Well, I appreciate that. This is an awesome dialogue. That was really good. I think that we learn a lot doing these dialogues like this too.
Yes. Well, I appreciate your time, James. It looks like the Zoom is going to end any second. So thank you.